After a very successful 2025 NFL Draft, we are 331 subs away from 409K. Hit that sub button. You'll get more free NFL YouTube videos all season and off season long. Let's talk trade rumors. Let's begin with maybe the biggest name out there. That's Jalen Ramsey. The Ramsey trade rumors are out there. Look, the Dolphins have acknowledged they were trying to trade him. But two things. One, the Dolphins did not draft a cornerback early. They had a need, but they had to get aggressive and trade up for Jonah Savnaya. They did take a corner in Jason Marshall in the 5th round. I don't think that makes them feel great about a cornerback room that wouldn't feature Jalen Ramsey, be led by Cam Smith and Kader Kohu and Storm Duck. Elite name, but still. ESPN, their Dolphins beat writer, says the Dolphins are still trying to trade Ramsey before the season. On June 1st, there are some changes in terms of how the contract would get played out, mostly with the way they're able to kind of spread out the dead money. As it sits right now, Jaylen Ramsay carries a meager $16.7 million cap hit. That's not that bad. But if the Dolphins trade him right now, because they truly just extended him, before last season began, they would actually lose a sizable amount of salary cap space. That they would miss out on a lot of what they are currently in line to save. Now, if they were to trade him after June 1st, which they have to wait until after June 1st to do it, they push some of that money into 2026. It's not as bad on the cap hit, and they would save around the $9 million basically that the new team would owe on the cap, which is super cheap. The new team, though, owes $21 million in cash because, again, some people signing a bonus, not all of it. It's kind of a complicated contract to trade that has, multiple years on it. The new team cap jumps to $18 million. The dead money is $15. It just gets a little bit complicated in terms of what the money looks like. Ramsey is getting older. He is not the same young, no doubt, top 2, top 3 corner he was at his absolute prime. He's now on the wrong side of 30, turns 31 in October. The cornerback fall off can come for everybody and can come quickly. I still think he's really, really good, and if you're a contender, you should strongly consider trying to acquire Jalen Ramsey. But the fact that it didn't happen during the draft, I think opens the door for maybe there isn't a trade of Jalen Ramsey. What do you think ends up happening? Will the Dolphins trade Jalen Ramsey, whether it's this month or next month or during camp or in the preseason? Will Miami trade him before the new year begins? Y for yes, N for no. Let's discuss the latest on Jaire Alexander, the future of the Packers corner. We'll stick with corners here because why not? His future remains unclear in Green Bay. Rob Demovsky, I think I pronounced that correctly, the Packers beat writer over at ESPN, says, according to a source, the Packers and Jaire Alexander continue to talk about a possible resolution, which could include a reconciliation to where Alexander plays for the Packers in 2025 after all. All options on the table: release, trade, return. I think the Packers' mindset has been, we're not just going to give away Alexander for nothing. They're not just going to cut him outright unless they can try to make a trade happen. As we're getting into, the money's a problem here too. The Packers did draft a corner in the 7th round. So, again, questions as to whether or not they're actually in a good enough spot to make that all balance out. Low-key, the money is also super complicated because you got a bunch of cash that you still pay Alexander and Ramsey. But like an Alexander for Ramsey swap, in the NBA, this would have happened already. I'm convinced of it. NFL, more complicated in terms of the way the cap structure all gets sorted out. Alexander has a $24+ million cap hit this year, $17.5 in cash. The savings after June 1st are much better if you wanted to cut him. A trade is possible right now, though, too. And then you owe a bunch of cash next year. And that's concerning for a guy that has played 14 games the past 2 years, 20 games between 2021 and 2022. That's a lot of missed time. When Alexander is healthy, he's really good. He's not always healthy. And that is a real red flag when it comes to potential trade. And does Alexander want to take a pay cut? And you kind of get a lot of conflicting points and disagreements between the camps, and that's why there's no resolution as we get closer and closer to May. NFL rookie jerseys are available. Get yours today over at chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Of note, these jerseys are, the link is kind of sorted by just like best selling, so you're going to have to maybe search for your team, search for your player. Funnily enough, the Shedeur Sanders jersey is one of the best sellers among rookies, which is kind of crazy. But men's, women's, they got you covered. Link will be in the comment section and the description for the new NFL rookie jerseys. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Let's go back to trade rumors, but at wide receiver, George Pickens. The Steelers have had trade talks around George Pickens, per Diana Rossini of The Athletic, but those seem to have cooled off now that the NFL draft has come and gone. I have not seen specific, truly credible, reliable details of what the Steelers' asking price is, and I very much wonder what it was, because my guess, they probably wanted a day 2 pick, right? Pittsburgh, I think they have at least the number 2 wide receiver, talent-wise. You know, Mike Tomlin should have said Pickens needs to mature, but there's undoubtedly talent. How much did they want to deal with it, I think, is a valid question. I don't think they were just going to give George Pickens away because everyone in their brother knew Pittsburgh needed another wide receiver. So to get DK Metcalf fills that, but then if you trade away Pickens and don't get a good asset back, okay, well, now you're right back where you started. It's, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know if it's fully dead, the potential trade, but I think what the package looks like maybe is adjusted post-draft. What is the percent chance the Steelers trade George Pickens? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. 0 to 100% chance they trade him this offseason. Again, I don't think it's totally dead. I think that I think part of the concern for other teams is, look, Pickens is awesome, but the track record of Steelers receivers who are like, kind of crazy and then leave, they don't get less crazy. It just gets a little bit worse, like Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown and Deontay Johnson. Like, once they leave Pittsburgh, outside of, like, Emmanuel Sanders and Holmes got banged up, but, like, it gets a little bit more concerning. I don't think the signing of Robert Woods solidifies their number 2 receiver spot if they were to move on from George Pickens. When he is on, he's a fringe wide receiver 1, if not an actual wide receiver 1. And when he's off, it's almost like a liability out there with drops and just kind of mentality might not be the right word, but is that it's all the other stuff that comes along with George Pickens. It's some of the attitude. It's the allegedly missing meetings. It's getting fined repeatedly by his own team. It's just the maturity which is what Mike Tomlin has said is kind of the main issue there, which I think does complicate a potential trade. If you can manage him, boy, you got a great talent. If you don't, stuff. And then let's discuss Amari Cooper. Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reports there is, quote-unquote, building team interest in the Dallas Cowboys reuniting with Amari Cooper, who, of course, they once traded away for a day 3 pick and a later round pick swap. We'll go in depth on this, but first, what do you think? Should the Cowboys bring back Amari Cooper? A for yes, B for no. Sound off in the comments of today's show. Look, Amari is not the player he was in his prime. The injuries have kind of mounted a little bit. He had some drop issues last year. There was one quarterback in particular he seemed to suffer more drops from than others. Not all of which were the QB's fault, but that's been a trend for a couple of years in a row now with Amari. Cold weather games are a bit of an issue. The available wide receiver options are not good for a team like the Dallas Cowboys. The chemistry between Amari and Dak, in theory, is actually a benefit. But, I mean, Jalen Tolbert did outplay Amari Cooper last year statistically, which is probably a red flag. But you probably feel better about Cooper being your 2/3 than Jonathan Mingo and Jalen Brooks and Ryan Flanoy and everyone else in the CD and the maybes there at the wide receiving core in Dallas. I don't know how much interest there's truly been in Amari Cooper. We are now after the Monday from the draft, so anyone who signs does not impact the comp pick formula, except for you, Elijah Moore and J.K. Dobbins, since they got the free agent tender from their respective teams. We already saw some traction, guys like Deontay Johnson getting signed. I wonder how much longer Amari Cooper will wait unsigned.